Hey, everybody, it's Aslan and it's Michael Langston, y'all. Let's go. Recruiting recap here, part of Wake Up Warchant, also a standalone video. We could sit here and tell you about just how hard Michael Langston's been working, but hopefully you're a member and you realize that. If not, you're probably on YouTube and you realize that as well because of all the interviews that are going out there. Michael, thanks for taking time out, man. Appreciate you. How are you?
No problem, man. Very, very chaotic weekend for sure. 19 official visitors. A lot of good positive momentum building. So a lot of stuff going on. I think they made a move on a lot of these kids, and we could spend an hour talking about these targets, but we're going to pick a few. But yeah, I think it was a really positive weekend for FSU.
All right, let's focus on the elite guys because I think Florida State fans are confident that Mike Norvell can backfill the roster with some of the diamonds in the rough, but folks want the big dogs. Doesn't get much bigger than Josh Petty, 5-star offensive lineman, number 2 interior lineman according to On3, but he might have some tackle versatility there. 6'4", 265 out of Roswell, Georgia Fellowship Christian School. Michael, how real is the pursuit of Josh Petty? And what sort of ground did Florida State make in the pursuit of him?
I think it's very real. And it's been very real since he took a spring visit. Obviously, this visit was a little more just put the stamp on it as far as official visit because you do so many things. Academics highlighted the players. Players, I think, really helped solidify kind of their position, which I think is number one for Josh Petty, and so I think they're trending in a good direction there. And I think the things Atkins and things he does with offensive linemen, and then too the offense. I think Josh really likes this offense. Resonates with it. Loves certainly Coach Norvell. He's like he's he even said in the interview that guy's ridiculous. Like I don't know how he does if he's on Red Bull or whatever, but there's certainly a attraction and a comfort that at FSU that feels fairly unique. And even going in the visit, I felt like FSU was in a good spot, but he'll decide in the summer. But I think things are trending in a good direction there.
Apparently, he's got some sibling, some
Yes,
relationship
yeah.
vibes also helping out Florida State right now.
Yeah, yeah. His sister is enrolled at FSU. She did a lot of recruiting. Josh said he said they're really close. So that's a big deal to him. Certainly that she's going there. They've been close. They haven't been away from each other that much. So I think the fact that she's going to FSU, and certainly she put her plug in the day or throughout the weekend about certainly FSU. But I think it's more than just that. That's a nice edge and a nice angle. But I think there's so much more that I think that leads it to the comfort of FSU and why I feel like my pick would sit on FSU at this point.
Awesome. That's incredible news, man. Um, there's that group of states, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, where I'm always a little bit skeptical and cynical when it comes to trying to pull players out of there, but I get you have to try. Texas, it's a big state, man. So there's some guys that are going to leave, but it's always hard to pull the top guys away, especially
Hmm.
when they're on offense and what Steve Sarkisian's been able to do out there. But Dalton McCutchen, him getting on campus, just how important was that for Florida State? What kind of impression do you think they were able to make on this weekend?
Very important, and the one time where if you're going to get a Texas kid, you need to have the finalist that's not in Texas. And I think the team that I've heard the most that they're competing against is USC.
Mm.
So I think that's a positive development. Plus, too, just the way Dalen is around when he's at FSU. I mean, he's taken like 3 or 4 visits to FSU. That's like 10 hours. So he obviously covets FSU, and then he talks about unique feelings when he has at FSU. I think FSU feels good about their position. Obviously, he's going to make a sit down with his parents and family and decide kind of which one's the best. But I think FSU is the one that I have to go by feel one intel and info that I'm getting, but two just the body language of the way he talks about FSU seems to be very unique. So I do think at this hours we do this. I think FSU it has the momentum in this recruitment, and I've said that I felt like if I was going to pick a favorite, it would be them just because of the factors I just mentioned. I think what they do with receivers is a big deal. It's not surprising that USC is the other team that we hear because USC also does a good job of receivers. So I think Texas, you can't count them out. That's an in-state school that certainly is pushing. And there's other schools like Ohio State, but I really felt like from the start, not only did FSU covet Dalen, but Dalen coveted them. So I really felt like there was a unique relationship, and I really think that stands out to Dalen at this point with FSU.
That'd be a great pickup, man. And obviously, there's enough reasons to come to Florida State and play in this offense. Hopefully, McCutchen's seeing the light. And listen, it's Lincoln Riley. You're not gonna have a defense. You're not gonna win a lot of games out there, probably.
Yeah,
Just one man's opinion. Michael Langston, I was out in Nashville next year. Hopefully, we'll tag team it up there, man. We'll take over Music City.
I'd love that.
And was able to speak to Tavo Wallace.
Hmm.
And at face value, I believe everything that kid told me when I spoke to him in Nashville. He said Florida State's out in front. He was here this weekend. I don't know though. You see a linebacker, you think about Florida State. He's from Georgia.
Yeah.
Can Florida State fans breathe any easier after Wallace was on campus this weekend on an official?
Well, I don't think any FSU breathes easy until one, they sign, but two, they commit. But I think they're in a great position. And the body language was again there, like it has been when I've seen with Tavion. We interviewed him. There was some clear things that he said that really screamed FSU. When you look at just the relationships, the connection that he has, the product on the field is, I think, a big deal with him. And the other team we had heard so much was more so Florida than Georgia. But I think most, just about all the intel I've got, it feels like this is FSU to lose, but it's like, man, the linebacker position, it's always one that makes you nervous. So you don't until you get that decision, but definitely everything coming out of it so far feels FSU. I think he's deciding on July 2nd. So that's coming up, pretty soon. But I think getting that last visit, and I don't think that was like by accident. I think he wanted to see FSU because the FSU's been the team that's the most on his mind. I think he has the best relationships with FSU. I think he sees the productivity of guys like Bethune and Deloach, and he sees that he could be a part of that. And I think he believes also in what Randy Shannon does with linebackers. I think that's a big part of this, of why I think FSU's positioned themselves the way they have.
We'll keep the fingers crossed. Wallace, 6'1" and a quarter, 216 pounds, out of Wayne County in Jessup, Georgia. Uh, number 3 linebacker in the entire cycle, number 10 overall prospect out of Georgia, number 58 overall prospect in the country.
And a must add, man. Let's just call it what it is. That's a must add.
I
Like,
like it. Absolutely. Because just right. The fact that the amount of times he's been on campus, what he said about this school, I mean, them leading.
yeah,
And I know people are like, I don't care about summer commitments. Y'all need to change your mindset, right, Michael? Like
yeah.
that's when kids are going to start committing is in the next like 30 days or so.
I
So
get it. I get why people feel that way. I know KJ Bolden burned your soul and all that stuff, so I understand that. But you better get used to it. Kids are going to make summer decisions. Kids are also going to where you got to recruit them the whole year. You still got to go through the season and what you do on the field. And certainly, if FSU does what we've seen, I don't think that's a problem. But that's just part of the process. This is step one of the process, and the step two of the process is the season.
well said, Michael, per
Yep.
usual. Hey,
Yep.
how about more playmakers and an offense meant for playmakers? American Heritage High School, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 5'10" and a half, 205 pounds. That's what Byron Lewis stacks up as. Number 14 running back in this cycle, 4-star guy. We see Miami, Georgia on the sidebar, Wisconsin to a very lesser degree.
Yeah.
Florida State, big lead on the RPM. Michael, do you agree with that after his appearance in Tallahassee this weekend?
I think the RPM is fairly accurate based on what we have. I do know, I can tell people, like, I do think FSU feels good about their position. Yeah, they felt good going into it. I think they feel a little bit even better, coming out of it. A guy that they've targeted for a while, the ties are nonstop with Patrick Surtain being a former coach, and certainly his relationship with Coach Yak, that his built. And then two, the thing that we don't probably talk about and we should is what FSU does with the rushing attack on the field. I mean, that's a big deal when you're one of the best rushing teams in the country, and kids see that that's an attractive thing to go along with your product on the field. So I think Miami's probably the biggest competition that I've heard. I know he took a visit to Georgia. They certainly put themselves in the picture, made a big impression. But I think overall it's been between FSU and Miami, and I think I still feel the way I did before, that I feel that FSU is the team that I think is the team that you feel like that is likely going to get good news. Without just saying, "Hey, it's definitely going to happen." I think they sit in the best spot, and the fact too that Byron didn't do a interview with the media, so that kind of tells me too, like, this one was really good. All the vibes tell me, and all the intel tells me, FSU is seemingly in a great spot there.
Do we have a decision date on Byron Lewis?
We do not have a date yet, but I believe it's sometime in July. I'm sure he'll come up with that soon, now that he's done all the official visits. And this is another one that I feel like that it wasn't done by accident. FSU getting that last official visit. I think they've been in there for a long time. The relationship has only gotten stronger. It just took like 3 to 4 5 visits to FSU, and like I said, there's a lot of ties there. And so far, we'll see where it's at, a day or two from now. But so far, I think FSU feels good about their position.
All right. How about one of his teammates? Let's go
Yeah.
down and stay south. Another product of the American Heritage pipeline that we're hoping Patrick Surtain's able to properly filter up this way. Gregory Z Thomas,
Hmm.
6'2", 195-pound cornerback. That's some really solid measurables. 4-star according to the On3 consensus rankings. Number 29 cornerback. Huge lead for the Noles on the RPM machine there with Gregory Z Thomas, 6'2", 195 again, Michael. How much of Patrick Surtain's presence do you think is factoring into those scales being tipped so nicely into Florida State's favor right now?
I think it's part of it, certainly a significant part, but there's a lot of different, parts. I think one of the main things too is that he just loves the way he feels when he's there. Not just what Surtain does with defensive backs, or just what FSU does usage, whether it's a safety or corner. He did say that FSU's recruiting him as a corner, so they that was interesting because he plays a lot of positions, so you know where he's going to line up, kind of almost Jalen Ramsey like, of just you can put him anywhere on the field in that secondary and you feel comfortable. But I think they've been the strong leader for a while. It's like, if there's any prospect that's visiting this weekend, this was probably the one that you feel the strongest, that FSU, it's likely going to be FSU. Even said lately that it was Clemson and Florida State as his top two teams. I think he tweeted that, and then also had something announcing on, I think, July 2nd. So that's a guy that it could be sooner than that. I could be wrong on the date, so don't quote me on that. But either way, it's coming up soon. This was the last visit, and just when he talks about FSU, there's a lot of smiling. There's a lot of different things. So there's a personal connection, and he has parts Seminole Indian heritage in his bloodline.
Mm.
So that doesn't hurt. That he's a Seminole inside, for as far as being a Native American Seminole. So I think you add all these things together, it's going to be hard for me to see him not picking anybody but FSU.
All right. Florida State fans are going to appreciate hearing that from you, Michael. Wasn't able to find a decision date on him, but Tavion Wallace, I think we've got on July 2nd.
Okay.
And I think you might have said that as much. So
Yeah.
just wanted to go back on that. But again, 19 official visitors, Michael, and we spoke about 5 of the 19. So
Yeah.
maybe some people are going to connect dots and think those are like the 5, maybe most likely. Is that fair to say? I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Michael, but again, we have limited time. We don't want to give everything away out because it's all over there on the PRB, but some of
Well,
these are names that I picked out, but obviously you had some input as well about who you want to speak about.
yeah, I think those are some of the ones that we feel good about, or they have a strong chance at. But there's others that I also feel in that area. We just can't cover everybody. I think Kevin Wynn's one to definitely watch out for next week. I really like where FSU's positioned himself. 4-star defensive tackle out of Georgia. I know they really like him a lot. Myron Charles, another one. They hit that. uh, Everyone's probably going. Probably Odell, if he could post on the message where you say, "Hey, how you like me now?" Yeah, Odell, if he gets both of those, so I think you really solidify that position. So I think there's more in there, guys, but these are just some of the top ones we want to highlight in this feature. But I think overall, Aslan, just a great weekend for FSU. I think they really knocked it out of the park with this visit. The way they made it personal was different, in a few ways of the other official visits, and I think they just made it at home. And then two, just having Trammell out there recruiting other guys certainly helped.
Man, I want to let you go, but I got two other questions for you.
Okay.
Mike, one of them's kind of quick. I think we're going to hit like how long of a month, like a month long quiet period or silent or dead period here in another week or so. Is that true?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe it lasts until the end of July, which is, I want to say, the 25th, something like that. And then there's a short period, maybe 3 to 5 days, where you can host an event. FSU could host a Seminole showcase or elite camp. That could happen. Barbecue, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of what they did last year. We dealt with. So outside of that, Aslan, I think we're pretty much done. Like outside of that event or that weekend, I think that's pretty much it until the season starts. Because I think then you'll hit a full dead period. So that's my understanding.
Yeah, looks like what we got here. It says June 24th to July 24th, dead period.
Yeah.
Quiet period overlap comes afterwards,
Yeah.
July 25th to the 31st. So,
Yep.
all right, man. Well, I should probably ask you what you're going to do for vacation, but I won't do that. You can keep that sort of stuff to yourself. But last thing on the way out, Michael, just, obviously they've hosted so many. I mean, they made this like a huge weekend because it's right
Yeah.
before a dead period. They brought as many guys as they could on here to kind of make an impact. When things don't work out, when guys come here and it turns out to not lead to a commitment, obviously no one's committed. Do you think those guys usually have their minds made up, or do you think they arrive here and for whatever reason, maybe things just don't line up in their vision, and that's what leads to them, either not talking to you guys or saying really great things about the program in interviews afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these guys have an idea of where they're going. I think, it's kind of with the Smigel kid that came over, 2026
Oh yeah,
quarterback that they
we
landed.
even
I
talked
think
about that. Yeah.
I think he was like kinda he knew, like, "Hey, there's a chance I could commit if I see what I need to see," and I think that's with where they're at, and I think that's why they orchestrated this, last weekend visit for a lot of these top targets that they felt they're in a good position for, and then there's some in there that are kind of 50-50 that they could land that we haven't all discussed everybody, so I think it's an orchestrated thing, but there's no guarantee either. You still have to do the work, and I think they did a phenomenal job. I know I can tell you this, guys. The staff is pretty giddy about how I feel like from my contacts that the staff is pretty giddy about how this went and excited about how it was executed. And it doesn't always go that way. So that's not like to say that, hey, it always goes that way. But I guess when you put enough planning and organization into it, sometimes everything, the stars align, you get what you wanted. And I think for FSU, I don't think there was anything that was off a hitch that they didn't feel like they didn't nail on these trips and with a lot of these guys. And we haven't even talked about, majority of these other ones,
Mm.
that are either 50-50 or maybe FSU's a dark horse. So I think overall, they accomplished what they wanted.
Awesome, man. We accomplished what we want. We got Michael Langston on the show to give you folks a very thorough, comprehensive recap of the weekend that was in recruiting. Michael, thanks so much, man. I think we'll probably talk maybe once or twice. Actually, hopefully, I do want to talk to you, Michael, but just go sleep, have a vacation for the next 30 days, man. Enjoy yourself, man. Thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it as always.
You got it, man. And we'll have a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of interviews, a lot of features, a lot of different things. Might even do a 10 to watch, more after this big weekend. So certainly ramp up. I think July is going to be a busy month for FSU. So just stay tuned to Warchant. We'll have a lot more coming up.
Yeah, just because it's a dead period doesn't mean these kids can't commit, which they're
Yeah,
going to be making their commitments in July, right? So
you got it.
stay connected to warchant.com. Michael's got you covered. Michael Langston, everybody, recruiting analyst for warchant.com.